Welcome to Families in Faith. As Lent begins, we look at a popular tradition of giving something up for Lent. The season of Lent goes back to the early days of the Christian Church and became an officially recognized period at the Council of Nicaea in 325 AD. The word Lent itself is derived from the Anglo-Saxon words Lenten, meaning spring, and Lengtentide, which literally means springtime, but also was the word for March, the month in which the majority of Lent falls. The Lenten season is 40 days before Easter, not counting Sundays. Sundays are supposed to be like mini Easters, where there is a break in the fasting or giving up of things. But typically, Lent is celebrated on Sundays as well, since that's when the majority of Christians go to church. The idea of giving something up for Lent is based on the idea of fasting. The 40-day period is reminiscent of the 40 days that Jesus spent in the wilderness fasting and praying. Traditionally, there were certain days one would fast, and then certain things that one would give up entirely. So one might fast on Ash Wednesday and Good Friday, but also give up meat on Fridays throughout the 40 days. This fasting tradition has evolved into the idea of giving something up for Lent. What you give up is really up to you, but it's supposed to be something that might weigh you down or interfere with your relationship with God, and by giving it up, you have time to focus on Jesus and growing in your faith. Popular things you hear people giving up for Lent include chocolate or alcohol, but giving something up is really only half the point. The second half is what you fill in. Jesus' time of fasting in the wilderness was not just about giving up food, but about his total reliance on God. He devoted his time in the wilderness to prayer, praise, and Bible reading. We see connections to these when the devil tempts Jesus. He always responds with Scripture. This Lenten practice of giving something up in order to add something can be a wonderful family tradition for passing on the faith. Typically, the act of sacrificing something or fasting is done in solitude, but families can certainly give something up together in order to grow in their faith. Spend some time talking about Lent and preparing for Easter. What are some things that your family can give up for the next 40 days? What will your family do then to grow in your faith and prepare for the celebration of Easter? What if your family decided to give up technology for 1 day per week? What could you do with that time wasn't filled with TV, the internet, video games, and music? You might find time for special games and activity nights. Perhaps your family can plan and execute a special meal, then play a game together. Finish the evening off with a special devotion and prayer time. What if your family decided to give up one big meal per week and use the money left over for someone else? So rather than going out to eat or cooking a big meal, plan on one simple box of macaroni and cheese that costs $1. Then use the money you might have spent to help those in need in our community. This will be difficult as an entire family eating from one box of macaroni and cheese will not equate to a very satisfying meal. Use that to talk about fasting and to pray together. Make sure to make the connection to Lent and preparing for Easter and to the sacrifice. What if your family gave up sweets for the entire 40 days of Lent? That would prove to be difficult, I'm sure, but think of how good those chocolate eggs and marshmallow bunnies will taste on Easter Sunday. Giving something up for Lent makes the celebration at Easter more joyous and complete. The practice of the Lenten sacrifice builds the anticipation and the joy of Easter. Give it a try this year with your family. Let the kids have a say in what you give up and what you will do to fill that time. Use Lent to prepare your hearts for Easter, a season of extra prayer and devotion and family connections.